Welcome to Flourishing Flame, from burning out to burning bright with therapist and coach Leah Brown. Are you a people helper or caregiver, feeling overwhelmed, distant, cynical, and crispy around the edges? Join me to defeat burnout by learning how to manage stress and create deep connective relationships with others so that you can pursue your calling, providing light and warmth to those around you.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about stress. And starting out, I just wanted to let you know that we're not going to cover everything about stress in one episode. And people have written books and books about stress. What I want to do today is just to give you some kind of high points, and then I'm going to take the next several weeks and unpack a lot of this information so that you have a better understanding. But today is the 40,000 foot view of stress. In episode 3, I talked to you about burnout. And if you remember, the National Health Service definition of burnout is the experience of feeling stressed for a long period of time, a state of physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. So what is stress? I looked it up in a few different dictionaries and got some different ideas. In Lexio, stress is defined as a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. Often what we think about when we think about being stressed out. In the Webster's 1828 dictionary, stress is defined as force, urgency, pressure, importance, that which bears with most weight. We talked in episode 3 also about the social readjustment rating scale. As a reminder, the social readjustment rating scale was created in 1967 to identify the possible link between stress and illness. The scale was created by taking 5,000 patients and using their medical records and using surveys to find out what was going on with them, because it was designed to help insurance companies find out who would be the most likely to become ill. They had a list of life event stressors, and I'm going to give you some examples. There was a death of a spouse, which was 100 points. Getting married was 50 points. Being fired at work was 47 points. Having a major business readjustment gave 39 points. And that could even mean the departments were switched around, your office is switched around, your responsibilities are switched around, like a combination of those types of things. Gaining a new family member, 39 points. That could be the birth of a new child. It could be adoption. It could be another family member moving into your home, like a parent or grandparent. Having a major change in responsibilities at work, either a promotion or a demotion, 29 points. Having an outstanding personal achievement, maybe you got an award or you graduated from school. That would be 28 points. Having a major change in your recreation or in church activities, those are two separate stressors, and they're 19 points each. And all of these stressors, you look at how many times it happened in the last 12 months. And then you multiply the number of times that it happened times the point value. The social readjustment rating scale is available as a download that I have for you, and you can find the link for it in the show notes. So if you scored 11 to 149 points on this, then you have a low to moderate chance of becoming ill in the near future based on their research. 150 to 299 points, you have only a moderate to high chance of becoming ill in the near future. If you scored 300 to 600 points, you have a high or very high risk of becoming ill in the near future. So is stress a bad thing only? Is it possibly a good thing? Can it be useful, or is it only harmful? I think of stress as like a dog. When we look at family movies from Beethoven all the way to thrillers like Trapped, we see the image of a vicious guard dog, right? The junkyard guard dog or something like that. And that image is scary. It is a dog not to be messed with. Usually the teeth look really sharp and pointy, and they just look vicious, and their bark is really loud. And we have that, and then we have all the way at the other end, we have, your friendly dog or puppy that wants to go on a walk and brings you the leash and gives you a nudge. They're both dogs, but our interaction with them is very different based on what they bring up in us. So if we think about stress as something that might be positive, kind of going back to more of the Webster's dictionary version of some urgency or pressure, importance, we can see how it can help us to prioritize between two different things. Which one is giving us more pressure to get it done? Which one has more weight? It can help us to be motivated or focused. How many of us have in schoolwork or a project for work, the closer we get to a due date, the more pressure we feel and the more motivated and focused we are to get it done. In the middle of a sporting event, this pressure can help us to run faster, jump higher, reach for the ball that we might not reach for during practice, but now we feel more motivated. Some of my kids are in a stage production of White Christmas, and I was talking with my daughter about the energy during a performance. In a performance, the energy in the air enhances the work that's already been done. It makes it sharper and better. Even the details of a character's posture, she said, comes more naturally during the show, during that energy. And she also said that when there's this exciting flow that comes about during a show, then it feels like sparkles are coming out of her fingers and toes when she's dancing. This energy is great. This pressure is great in short bursts. And when we try to extend it too long, or when there's too much of it, then it does have negative consequences. And even when we think about these negative results of stress, it's not the things themselves, but it's how we're responding to them that make them feel that way, that make them feel negative. So Andrew Bernstein said that the truth is that stress doesn't come from your boss, your kids, your spouse, traffic jams, health challenges, or other circumstances. It comes from your thoughts about your circumstances. It's those thoughts about those stressors that I mentioned earlier that really cause us to feel that pressure in a negative sense. So stress affects us in our behavior. It affects what we do and don't do, what we want to do. It affects us mentally. Part of it is that motivation, and there's when you have a lot going on, it can make it hard to keep everything straight in your head. It affects us emotionally. We feel emotional pressure and stress. It affects us physically. It affects every system in our body when we're under a lot of stress. It affects us socially, partially because of some of the behavioral, mental, and emotional, and physical things that are going on, but it also affects our relationships. It also affects us spiritually, not just spiritually thinking about a relationship with God, but spiritually also in how we feel, the metaphysical, the part of us that is not flesh and blood, right? And when we have that part of us that feels like it is in contradiction to what's going on with us in a physical sense, like when you think about a duck that's on a pond, it looks like it's just floating along and it looks really graceful, but underneath the legs can be paddling really fast and it looks more chaotic from that perspective. And when we have this disjointed or broken sense of self, of what we're like internally versus how we're presenting externally, then that is an effect of how stress affects us spiritually as well. So there's this optimal place of optimal amount of stress in the very neutral sense of the word of stress. And there's research that was done by Yerkes and Dodson where they tracked a direct relationship between performance and stress level. When there's absolutely no stress, then that tends to make us inactive and bored. Even when we want to stay in bed all day, the pressure of our bladder eventually gets us up. There's a healthy tension that when we're experiencing a nominal level of pressure just in general in life that contributes to our motivation. When we are looking for that optimal or peak performance where we are at our best, we're the most dialed in, kind of that idea of the last play of a football game where everyone is just at their highest, at their peak, at their optimal level of performance. that's something that can be positive for us, but it's something that needs to be a short period of time, right? Like a burst of energy, not something that we're trying to maintain all the time. When we're trying to do that, when it's too much or too long, then we end up with stress overload. Stress overload makes us feel fatigued and exhausted. It contributes to us having sickness, like we looked at with the social readjustment rating scale. And it causes us to feel burnt out and to have a breakdown. There's this place, I call it the flourishing zone. It's an optimal zone for a person to function in everyday life. When a person is operating within this zone or this window, they can effectively manage and cope with their emotions. In a later episode, I will talk to you about the other zones that we can get into and how stress and trauma affects our ability to remain in the flourishing zone. Like I said before, today was just that 40,000 foot view of stress. And I just wanted to really encourage you to look at how stress and that pressure can actually be neutral, and that you can use it to your advantage in helping you to view it like the dog that needs to go for a walk, that brings you the leash and gives you a little nudge, instead of feeling like it's a fearful thing, like a guard dog that is trying to scare you and trying to take over your life. We're going to talk about specific ways that you can make that transition to manage your stress so that it's not managing you in the next several episodes. So I'm so excited for this time, and I am looking forward to this information so that you can go into this new year with a new perspective on how you can manage your stress and manage your life in a way to help you to have optimal functioning, and to help you to use the force and the pressure to help you to know what's important, and to help you to make the adjustments that you need in your life moving into 2024.
Thank you for joining me today. If this episode added kindling to your flame, please leave a review and pass it on to a friend who could use some encouragement. You can connect with me and find additional resources at leahlittlebrown.com. Now go forth and burn in all your brilliance.